Happy World Podcast Day, and to celebrate, here's some of my favourite clips from my podcast, Broken Roads.
You have that tree. Next to the tree, you have your classic Bristolian brambles. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of impenetrable 3D mess that we always come upon here.
Mm-hmm.
You and I know it well. You pull on one thing, everything else moves, yeah? Everything's linked together in an unholy mess of things. So, I mean, we're going to argue about this later about how much is genetics. And I'm pretty, or maybe we'll agree, but that would be boring. So let's argue about it. Is that 50% of these bramble vines, they are defined by genetics, whether they're green, red, thorny, carrying nice blackberries or not. But the actual identity of the bush is how they're all mixed up, right? So imagine how, yes, a lot of it's genetic, half of it, but they all hook in with social class, with the abuse that you experienced, your dreams, latest political ideas, Catholicism, Islam, whatever. Yeah, an unholy mess there, or holy if you mention the religions. If you were into ACEs, so that big old tree idea, you go into that bramble and you go, oh, look over there. We have, they grew up in a racist society, or their parents were divorced, or they were suffering over abuse. And I go, yeah. But there are also 50 other, or like everything affects everything. How can you say that this one is the one that affects?
You were immediately very honest about your life experiences, and that is, for a ghostwriter, that's the key thing, to be able to tap into somebody's very real lived experience, that they're not going to hold anything back, that they're not going to be inhibited, particularly in a story which is as difficult and as complicated and go to some very dark places as yours does. You want to be able to feel that you have the trust of the named author in order to be able to tell that story in the right way. And I think we were able to develop that sense of mutual trust very quickly, so that I knew I would be able to ask you the right kind of questions. I'll be able to probe where necessary to get into, the real nuts and bolts of what you were experiencing, and you weren't going to hold back, and you never did.
My earliest memory of the time in communist Poland inspired when I was just under 10 years of age, and I remember when in my family home, together with my grandparents and my parents, who in the evening we was listening to this radio, a special edition podcast. It wasn't podcast then, but there was information flowing from America through radio called Free Europe. And that was forbidden in Poland then. And I remember I was listening to the radio, and there was all this stuff, political stuff about President Kennedy, and then later Reagan. And obviously, America was supporting Poland to the communist regime, and this, I would say, conspiracy in Poland. People, Polish family, they were trying to regain the freedom through network channels that been hardly acceptable by the communist regime in Russia.
So we've learned to suppress. As part of the system, we've learned to suppress. We've learned to look normal, act normal. But like there's the straw that breaks the camel's back for people that are holding tension and suppressing somatic experience. So the drugs really just numb us from that, and when we find it, it's like, oh, yes, a respite from myself, a respite from my internal somatic experience, from the mental noise, the overthinking, the obsessive thinking, and all that stuff that comes with it. And that will continue to destruction, yes. Of course, to me and you right now, that doesn't look very intelligent. I fully agree with that. But that's not what I'm looking at, because hopefully, for most of us, and I've been to a lot of funerals too, and I know this isn't always the case, but for most of us, at some point, addiction opens the door to looking within, you know, to the point where the drugs stop working, or you end up in prison, or you've trashed everything in your life, you become homeless, destitute, and so on, like I did, and a lot of other people that I know have. And you know, that we through divine intervention or whatever reason, we end up either in the rooms of 12 steps, or we end up finding freedom through some of the methods, psychiatric means, or some of the different type of recovery. And then